Welcome to part 2 of the Demystifying Strategic Planning course of the Nonprofit Bootcamp e-learning series. Our presenter today is Tamara Jones, President and CEO of Evident Impact LLC and Executive Director of the Southeastern African American Farmers Organic Network, or SAFON. Tamara brings more than 17 years of experience providing strategic leadership, organizational administration, program management, and team development. Her skill at leading organizations through effective planning and implementation resulted in her being honored as a 2011 White House Champion of Change. Jones specializes in leading organizations through robust and impactful planning, evaluation, and program management in order to help them achieve their strategic goals. She has extensive experience in government and nonprofit sectors and has an unrelenting passion to better the world through service to social impact organizations. Her professional life is marked by her leading programs to accomplish more than what was expected of them, and she is committed to helping more organizations do the same. Tamara, it is an honor to work with you and to have you as part of this series. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, and you can take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be back. Last week, we focused on understanding how to use strategic planning, not simply to produce a plan document for communication, but also to produce a document that can be used as a management tool to help with everyday decision making within the organization, as well as a tool to help create and support a learning culture within our organizations. This week, we're going to take a look at how to use a templated approach to help focus and ensure the highest quality outcomes in terms of the content in our strategic plans. I do want to say again that this time is not intended as a tutorial in strategic planning. I will not be spending time defining terms. I'm assuming a certain basic working knowledge of strategic plans. And again, we are going to tend to focus on those elements that can help you elevate and refine your own planning process. Okay. Oh, there we go. Great. So I want to start by saying we're going to end today. You'll come away from this session understanding the benefits of using a template for the planning process, as well as kind of a working knowledge of how to go about constructing your own template or how to use the template that you're going to be shown today. I understand that the Wallace Center is going to provide this template to everyone who's registered for the series. So you will be getting a Microsoft Excel version of the template for your use. Very quickly, there's several benefits, as you can imagine, for taking a templated approach to the planning process, not least of which is that it allows you to really control the consistency in the document. Typically, as you are creating your strategic plans, you're going through many different drafts and versions. Having a template that everyone is working from can really help to ensure that you maintain consistency. It can also drive clarity of your content because with a template, we're able to define our terms, we're able to manage the amount of space that we're allowing for verbiage, and it can really help to promote a succinctness and more clarity of thought. The most important benefit, to my mind, is that it can really help to ensure logical cohesion in the document. So often we find strategic plans can end up being a little disjointed. You look at the strategies that come out of a plan, and they don't really seem to logically drive towards the results that are defined in the objectives and goals. And so a template can help to narrow that logical gap. It can make it a lot easier to write content, and most importantly, I think, can streamline the process, saving you time and money, especially if you are managing the strategic planning process in-house with staff. And a template allows you to customize the process to your unique organization. So at this point, we're going to jump right into a working template that I developed for use with nonprofit clients. The version that we're going to look at today is really focused on helping an organization craft content that it reflects best practices in the strategic plan. And so it's to put in a workbook format, in a spreadsheet format. You'll see here on the bottom, there are different tabs. Each tab represents one element that should be considered, if not included, in your strategic plan document. The format of the worksheet is such that on each page you have some explanation, some definitions of terms, and then you'll see a green box. And the green box is where we're typing content. And the worksheet is built so that as you type content in the early worksheets, it will pull that content into subsequent worksheets as needed. And I'll demonstrate that as we go. So you'll see we've got history, mission, vision, value statement, problem statement, solution statement. We designed this workbook to incorporate not just traditional strategic planning questions, but also a theory of change and logic model concerns as well. So we don't have time to look at each and every tab, so I'm going to use our time today to just introduce you to some of the more in-demand aspects of strategic plans, if you will. So if we jump to the mission tab, for example, here's an example of what I'm talking about. We give a brief definition of what a mission statement is. We identify the 3 core questions that every good mission statement should really try to address. And in some cases, we even give you a link to different websites where you can see what best practice content looks like. And then you're provided a green box to go ahead and type your mission statement for the organization. I'm going to jump over to the problem statement. This is one of the most important parts of doing a strategic plan. It's really, what is your mission and purpose? What is the problem that your program or organization was established to address? And so we're asking you to really write that problem statement out for us in a very clear and succinct way. And most of us are able to do that. And then you're asked to identify a few of the top drivers of that problem. What are the causes or conditions that are contributing to the persistence of that problem in your community? And then can you identify any data that supports what you're saying? The best strategic plans are validated and are not simply bald assertions, and so that's built in throughout the working document. And then you'll see, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go back here, and in the problems, I'm going to type, for example, if I had a client that had a mission of eradicating hunger, and one of their drivers that they identified were high rates of local poverty, which led families to skip meals, resulting in hunger. So we type that in, and you'll see that it pulled that forward onto the next tab, the solution tab. So now we have a reminder as we think about our solution statement, which we're going to write our general solution statement here. Then we might want to say, given each of the forces that we see shaping the problem, what is our approach going to be? And is there any data, reports, studies that validate what our proposed solution is going to be? There are some tabs down here that allow you to enter data related to doing an environmental scan, UVP, unique value proposition. You should be able to say what differentiates your organization from everything else in the marketplace. Clients, which are the folks that you are serving, how are the folks that are benefiting from your programs, and usually we have multiple subgroups of clients, so can we describe them? And I'm going to jump now to the goals. So the goals are the broad long-term results that we're trying to achieve. You've got some narrative here to remind you what that is. And I'm trying to scroll down. And typically, we say that you really shouldn't have more than 6 big goals that you're trying to achieve in any strategic plan. That's the other thing about the template, is that it has built-in limits. So you don't want a strategic plan that's so massive that it's beyond the capacity of your organization to do. In this case, I've put in a goal to have a financially stable organization. The next tab then says, what are the outcome measures or key performance indicators that we're going to use to track that goal? What are the top 4? The number of dollars in our emergency fund, the percent of revenue coming from unrestricted sources, the total annual revenue, and the direction of change we're trying to see in each one of them, and where are we going to look for the data at any given time so that we can track that. So this reminds us not to skip, and so many times organizations do, how we're going to track our progress towards our big goals. We have a tab for our objectives. These are the specific measurable results. Many of you probably know the acronym SMART. These are the SMART impacts or results that we want to achieve by the end of our plan period. So here's a reminder of our goal. Here are the outcome measures that we've identified, and now it's saying, can you identify up to 4, no more than 4, SMART objectives? So our goal is to be a financially stable organization, and our objectives are to increase our annual operating budget or revenue from $500,000 to $1 million in 3 years, to build a rainy day fund equal to 3 months of operating expenses, and to have 40% of our revenue come from unrestricted sources. There's a tab that invites you to create milestones. You're not going to get from $500,000 to $1 million overnight. So if you're starting with $500,000 in 2017, how much do you want to grow it by 2018, by 2019, by 2020? And that doesn't have to be a linear progression. This really does require some analysis around how quickly you think you can grow to the targets that you've set. We've got some annual milestones, and then you also have the ability to create quarterly milestones, which might allow you to track it even better. At this point, most organizations jump to creating strategies, but there's some important steps in the middle that the template encourages you to do. So given our objectives, for each objective, what are the top 3 barriers or conditions preventing us from achieving that objective? So, our board is very weak when it comes to fundraising. We don't have any professional grant writers on staff. We don't have time to do research on prospects. It's really important for us to understand the barriers that are facing us in achieving the objectives, and relatedly, what are the conditions or assets that we control that really might allow us to be successful in achieving that objective. So in this case, the board has weak fundraising skills, but they're willing to learn. They're not resistant to doing what's necessary. You do have access to a good list of top quality donors through an ally organization, and you might already have a software system to track contacts with funders and donors. So in understanding what your top barriers and the top conditions to support your successfully achieving that objective, you're much better positioned to craft meaningful strategies. Another tab that I really love and that most organizations overlook is thinking about how your current programs and initiatives are lining up with the strategic goals and objectives that you're creating. So every program and initiative that you're running you should be able to plug it in next to one of the objectives that you've created. So in this case, again, we're looking to increase our annual operating revenues. We're reminded of what our success factors and barriers are. And then here are 5 programs that we're currently running. One is we have a major donor campaign that the staff is running. It's a great fit with this strategic objective, but wow, we don't have a lot of good results to show from that. or we're running a grant application program. It's a great fit, but we're not yet sure if it's working. So we want to really assess where all of our programs line up in relation to the objectives, and if there are things we're doing that don't fit with any of our objectives, that's an opportunity to really to have a conversation. Why are you doing those programs? Are these things that you need to cut, or are you missing an important strategic objective? With that preparatory work, it's much easier and more effective to then identify strategies that will have a higher probability of success. You want to create strategies that are speaking to all of these things, that are taking advantage of your success factors, that are overcoming the barriers that you're facing, and that are either extending your current programs or replacing programs that don't work. So that's really what we're doing here. All right. Just skipping on the bottom. So once you've done your strategies, there are tabs that allow you to identify metrics for tracking. There's a tab that allows us to identify key strategic partners that, whoops, sorry about that, that we might either have or want to develop partnerships with, organizations we want to develop partnerships with, and how we think they might contribute to our efforts to achieve that objective. And then a really important tab is the accountability tab. So often we do these strategic plans and everything seems to fall on the shoulders of the executive director to somehow monitor and track. And that's really sometimes a missed opportunity. Not sometimes, it's always a missed opportunity. We want to use these strategic plans to develop and support extension of leadership throughout the organization at every level. We want everyone, to the extent that they can, playing a role in moving what's in the plan forward. So what you're seeing here is we're reminded of our objective. It's a good practice to assign someone to oversee and check in that progress is being made towards that objective. And this page should only be populated by an individual. So it's a position or the name of a person. Groups cannot be held accountable, only individuals. And then for each of the strategies that we've identified, who is going to be responsible for ensuring that that strategy is moving forward? It doesn't have to be the person executing the strategy, but they're at least checking in on the folks working on it to ensure that things aren't falling off the table or being overlooked. So the objective leader ideally is checking in with all of the strategy leaders related to that objective. And so we've got communications, we've got support, we're ensuring that everything is moving forward in the organization. In the last couple of minutes that I've got left, I want to point to this last slide, which is really not a part of the strategic plan per se, but once the plans are done, we need to have some way of connecting what's in the strategic plan to the work plans and the budgets that need to be developed to do the work for the rest of the year. And so this sheet is showing you a resource planning sheet for 1 month of the year. What we do is we pull in each of the goals and objectives and all of the strategies, and then we work across. And typically, we also show the strategy leader here. And whoever is a strategy leader is who's filling out that row. So for this strategy, for the month of March, here is the deliverable. And it would list all the deliverables. And the deliverable is a tangible product. It's a report, a document, a meeting that needs to be organized. So what's the deliverable for the month? And then for each of the employees, and we typically put names at the top here, how many hours are you estimating they're going to need to work to deliver the work product that month? And as we go across the screen, forgive me, there's a little bit of a lag. We've also, a lot of the organizations have really been using this, not just the plan work products, but also to plan what resources are going to be needed for the coming year. So are we going to need to do any travel this month in order to produce that deliverable? You'll see there's a black tie gala. We want to have a signed venue contract. Well, we're going to need to travel to DC to go look at the venue. And so there's going to be a cost associated with that. And then as you go across, is there something that we're asking from the board? You know, we're going to do an RFP and we want the board finance chair to take a look at the RFP before we send it out. And then the rest of the document is, you know, what else are you going to need? What other specific resources, and what's your estimated cost in order to produce that? This is a great way to begin to empower the staff, all of the members of your team, to be taking ownership for planning their work and also helping the organization identify the level of resources it's going to take to do the work, and not just expecting a budget director or an executive director alone to connect those dots. Jeff, if you could take me back to the slides at this time. Thank you. Great. And so what next? We've spent our first session looking at a way of working with our strategic plans to encourage management decision-making and to develop a learning culture within our organizations. Today, we've taken a quick look at how one can use a template to drive high-quality content in the strategic plan and best practices in terms of strategic thinking and resource planning. And for our final session next week, we'll take a look at how to use a template to support more effective monitoring and evaluation, as well as best practices related to that. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to talking with you during office hours. And Susan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tamara.